So Season 3 Reloaded is here for Modern Warfare 3, and with it we've got a ton of things to discuss. New content, new rewards and grind-worthy items, new weapon tuning, new changes we didn't think would be getting adjusted but were, so there's a lot to go over. Grab your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Modern Warfare 3, Warzone, and other FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community, but for now, let's get into it. Starting with the Modern Warfare 3 side of things, just because we've beaten them to death, we're not going to be focusing on the big, higher picture stuff like maps, weapons, stuff we already know about. Those maps, of course, 6v6, Grime and Checkpoint, the new weapon of the Ball 27, and the Warden's kit for the Mark II from Modern Warfare 2 is coming today, which will come along with the weekly challenges, meaning you'll be functionally able to have the Akimbo Model 1887s. But beyond that, what else besides the big marquee stuff that we've already talked about has come today with this update? Well, firstly, one of the things that I'm very excited for here in grinding out is new weapon prestige camos. This is detailed as a new progression system for players to flex mastery of their favorite weapon in Modern Warfare 3. To unlock these, a player has to earn a set amount of weapon XP for their weapon of choice, including those carried forward from Modern Warfare 2. So you can end up having a Modern Warfare 3 mastery camo that somewhat applies to a Modern Warfare 2 weapon. It's built for every weapon, but it is something that is from Modern Warfare 3, so it's a little strange to see based off the parameters we've had for other mastery camos. But weapon prestige camos are earned on a per weapon basis, and the debut one, called One Trick, is unlocked upon earning 150,000 weapon XP, so not regular XP. If you have leftover double weapon XP tokens, these will come in handy, but it's an animated molten gold camo that upon completion you can use for that weapon. Again, it doesn't apply to every single weapon once you unlock it for that singular weapon, but it is on a per weapon basis. Now, the cool thing is that this isn't just a one and done type of thing here that Sledgehammer has introduced with this. They stated explicitly you can expect to see new weapon prestige camos in each of the remaining seasons ahead. So we have Season 4, Season 5, and Season 6. So at least 3, but if they're maybe doing it on a per update basis, that could potentially jump upwards of 6, because you have the season and then the Reloaded update. But more so, I'm going to bank on the 3 for the rest of the year, just because I'm not trying to get my hopes too high and then not quite have that delivered. But yeah, we have new weapon prestige camos, which is awesome. I think a new way to grind out, an additional thing for those that are interested. Now, beyond that, we have a bunch of different UI and UX and bug fixes and stuff like that before we jump into the weapon tuning. But one that actually did really stand out to me, that among a bunch of things that may be just miscellaneous, maybe you've heard of these, maybe you didn't, in which case it doesn't really apply to you. One big thing for the UI is that they increase the number of allowed favorite attachments from 10 to 30. Now, if you end up having some favorite attachments across a number of different weapon types, that might fill up pretty quickly. So now to have 20 additional slots here for that is definitely nice. But that said, let's talk about weapon tuning, because that is the next big thing here for this. On paper, if you look at just how we color code these things of nerfs versus buffs, nerfs being highlighted in red, buffs being in green, and then just things that are added baseline being in yellow, you'll see a lot of these screenshots. Well, for the rifles in particular, there's a lot of red, seemingly gutting the rifle category, but it's really not as bad as it looks. The BP-50, SVA, Ram 7, MTZ-556, Holger 556, MCW, and DG-56 all had nerfs to their hipfire spreads at base or while moving. So again, on paper, it looks like, oh my god, they gutted the rifle category, but realistically, it's not too detrimental to the gameplay experience. The DG-56 also added a medium damage range. That's something we should add in there as well. That's, again, not a buff or a nerf, it's just a new stat line added in. The FR556 surprisingly had a decent number of things adjusted to it in terms of buffs, making it a little bit better. The Lockman 762 and the M13C from Modern Warfare 2 both additionally had buffs across the board for those as well. For the battle rifles, you had the SOA Subverter adding a near medium damage range. Again, a baseline stat there, nothing that adds or subtracts from the weapon, just adding something that is in between those values already adjusted. And then you have a decrease in the minimum damage from 33 to 26. So you're still going to be able to get that max firepower out of it, but the minimum damage at a distance is going to do a little less. It's now said to require 6 shots to kill within that minimum damage range. The MTZ-762 saw a slight buff, as did the FTAC Recon in both the semi-auto and the full auto modes. The SO-14 from Modern Warfare 2 saw a buff across the board to the semi-auto, and a split decision on the full auto, where you saw a buff to the sprint to fire and aim down sight times, but a decrease to those torso, arm, hand, leg, and foot damage multipliers, bringing those down a little bit. The SMGs, we saw the Ram 9 saw a slight nerf, again adjusting those recoil properties, but also decreasing the max damage range, bringing that down from almost 13 meters to just about 11. The AMR 9 had a nice set of buffs here, increasing the damage ranges and the damage multipliers. The HRM 9 in multiplayer, for some reason, saw an increase to the medium damage range from 30.5 to 33 meters. That is something that does not apply one-to-one to Warzone. So as we'll touch on in a second when we get to the Warzone category, while that was kind of like the big annoyance because they didn't adjust it for so long, there was more adjustments to the HRM 9 and not in the way of buffs on Warzone side of things. The WSP 9 saw a buff and the WSP Swarm saw a nerf. The shotguns, the KV Broadside and Riveter, both saw buffs, though the 410 gauge ball ammunition for the Riveter saw some slight buffs, but also a nerf to the aim down sight spread, meaning you're going to have a little bit more of that pellet spray, even while aiming down sight. The LMGs, you saw the GG58, the TAC Eradicator, and the Holger 26 all getting buffs here, with some getting a little bit more than others. The MTZ Interceptor saw a nerf, as did the Moors across the board for its aim down sight and damage multipliers, while the anti-material slug ammunition saw an increase to the bullet velocity penalty, meaning it's going to be slower upon firing, though still pretty good. The handguns across the board here ended up seeing a lot of buffs in regards to movement speed or other movement attributes. So if you're a pistol player, you might notice some of this. It's a little bit faster in terms of that mobility. Now, beyond that, we also saw some perks adjusted, which is interesting here. A lot of these getting buffs, but we also saw an introduction in the perk category while removing a perk as well. The climbing boots are now removed across the board. They're just added to your base profile as an operator, so you don't have to worry about equipping those. And now we have the new all-terrain boots, which will replace those climbing boots, which significantly increases movement speed and disables tactical sprint. So a little bit of an interesting trade-off there with that. The running sneakers saw an improvement to the sprint to fire time while using tactical sprint. The stalker boots saw that strafe benefit now being omnidirectional rather than just a lateral movement here with this, which is awesome, I think. They also added a walking smoothness benefit, decreasing the bounciness of the reticle while aiming down sight. The commando gloves now will improve your sprint to fire speed and added the ability to cancel a reload by using tactical sprint. And the assault gloves saw an improvement to the hip fire spread while moving by 15%. Zombies, of course, you ended up getting all that other stuff that we talked about before. Again, that's some of the marquee stuff, the new Dark Ether Rift, the new acquisitions and schematics, the new Warlord. So don't want to stay too much on that kind of stuff, but let's jump over to the Warzone side of things here now, because there's, again, a lot to talk about. So coming back to the first thing we talked about here, that weapon prestige camo, you can earn that again in Warzone. It's not just for Modern Warfare 3. That was reiterated in the patch notes here that you can end up earning these with more to come in further seasons. But beyond that, we also saw, again, redacted bunkers opening up in Urzikstan, loaded resurgence and lockdown coming to Rebirth Island. For me, one of the big things that I think is kind of an unsung adjustment here so far, at least on paper, is that we have some audio improvements on Rebirth Island. They improved the audio occlusion as a whole, but also made level adjustments to ascenders, parachutes, and enemy footsteps, with ascender audios now having enemy and ally ascender audio cues, meaning they're going to be two distinct sounds that you can recognize of if that's a friendly or an enemy without having to look at your TAC map. Also, the interrogation and revive sounds are now improved and increased, so you can hear those from a bit further away and hopefully be able to recognize, hey, maybe we're not as safe as we thought we were. Beyond that, though, of course, a bunch of the stuff we talked about, the marquee items, heavy armor, that new public event, the weapon trade station, the utility box, foresight, the specialist perk package, and what they detailed as a redacted upgrade. They said with the arrival of new excellent gear, Kony has updated redacted to make good use of them, so we don't know what that is per se, which is interesting. Don't know why you'd tease something like that, but then not give any clues beyond that. But besides that, we saw some smaller adjustments here and there, but beyond that, in terms of weapon tuning, this is what, again, a lot of people were hoping to see in regards to a long laundry list of changes for weaponry. The assault rifles, again, kind of like how we saw with Modern Warfare 3, not quite one-to-one, but a lot of the same weapons did get adjusted, where on paper it looks like they were gutted. But if you look at those again, it is a lot of the same stuff of hipfire spreads and moving hipfire spreads being adjusted so that they are a little bit wider on those rifles. The ones that differ is the Ram 7. That had a slight hipfire adjustment, but also adjust the max damage, near to mid damage ranges, and the mid damage ranges altogether, nerfing every part of that. The MCW had an interesting back and forth here, teetering on the fence of buffs versus nerfs, where it buffed damage properties, but again, kept those hip fire adjustments across the board. Other weapons to be adjusted here, though, were the M13B, Tempest Razorback, and FR Advancer, all getting buffs to those as well. So bringing those potentially in line a little closer with some of the more Modern Warfare 3 and newer weapons here that have been some of the standout choices for the rifle category. Battle rifles, we saw the SOA Subverter getting a little bit of a nerf. Not a whole ton here to this, so I don't quite know if this is going to be enough to derail it as a main use weapon. The MTZ 762 and the SO14 both saw some adjustments as well that are more minor in scale. The SMGs, again, that HRM9 being probably the standout weapon that people want to see adjusted here. Again, it's not quite one-to-one with Modern Warfare 3. We had more done to this here with this, where we now have a decrease to the max damage, near to mid damage, the mid damage range, and the max damage range. So reeling that back on paper a decent bit. But again, in terms of actual values, it's not a whole ton. So I think it will be something that'll bring more competition into the fold, but it still will be a weapon you're probably going to see use a decent bit on. The Ram 9 also saw a nerf, but the Rival 9, WSP 9, and Striker 9 overall got buffs as well. The Rival 9 is interesting because it increased that max damage, but reeled back the max damage range. The other stuff is just kind of buffing it out on the extremities, but interesting changes to me no less. The shotguns, the KV Broadside, and the Riveter saw those same things from Modern Warfare 3. The light machine guns, the DG58, saw a buff. Bruin, a nerf across the board here with that, and the TAC Eradicator, giving it a bit more snap and mobility, but the base damage properties, that stuff is entirely unaltered. The snipers, the XRK Stalker, the Cat AMR, and the Moors all saw decreases to those bullet velocities, but the Moors also saw additional decreases in that aim down sight speed. And then finally, the handguns, again, all seeing increases to the movement and mobility here, so if you're a pistol player, you might notice this kind of stuff. But that's your weapon tuning and the changes we've seen across the board here from Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone with Season 3 Reloaded. Again, we got some stuff that are the marquee items that we talked about before that we didn't quite go over in this one, but just to save you time so we didn't have to reiterate, and it's stuff you'll end up seeing as soon as you log in. But this kind of other stuff, the back-end things that are more precise, you might not have noticed too much, so wanted to run those down for you guys, but that is what we're going to call it. So let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of this update? You like it, dislike it, think it's good, bad, whatever the case, drop your thoughts. But if you enjoyed the video, if you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 3, Warzone, and other FPS content here on the channel. I'd love to have you. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.